Hi, I'm Sally Andrews, and in this short video, I'm going to explore the question, was my people-pleasing behavior the source of my divorce? So, first of all, let's define people-pleasing. I'm going to read you the definition as given by the Gottman Institute, famous for their work on relationships. They define people-pleasing as the act of chronically prioritizing others' needs, wants, and feelings at the expense of or to the detriment of our own needs, wants, and feelings. So, people-pleasing, that is the act of bending over backwards to please another person, that is ignoring our own innate feelings, wants, and needs in favor of being other-oriented, pleasing the other person, and keeping the peace at all costs. And here we have a saying that when we keep silent in order to keep the peace, we start a war inside ourselves. Now, the problem with people-pleasing is that it comes with a large but. People-pleasing on the surface can look like acts of love and generosity, but it always comes with a hidden agenda. There's an in order to. We are people-pleasers because underneath the surface, we are actually seeking validation from another person. We're actually wanting to gain other people's approval. And this is a learned strategy to enable us to feel loved. If I please this other person and say yes to everything and do all the things and make myself responsible for the feelings of the other above and beyond my own feelings and needs, then I will be loved. This is learned in childhood. So the problem with people-pleasing behavior is, firstly, it can lead to codependency. We're now setting up a dynamic where I am the constant giver and the other person learns to be the constant taker. But I'm also becoming dependent on that other person for my own sense of self-worth and self-love. Now, in a healthy relationship, both parties generate from within themselves their own feelings of security, self-love, and self-worth. So we're setting up a tricky dynamic when we take on people-pleasing behaviors. It can lead to boundarylessness. So we spot something as a minor infraction or a large behavior that we're not happy with, and we step over it. Instead of putting in a clear boundary at that point, in order to keep the peace, we ignore it, we write it off, we think, oh, that's just trivial, I don't want to make a fuss. And over time, we slowly but surely give away all of our power and don't have any boundaries whatsoever. And we're training the other person the whole time to expect us not to have boundaries, to expect us to just ignore infractions and poor behaviors. We are people who avoid conflict in relationships, and actually a healthily communicated level of conflict is healthy in a relationship. That's how we figure out our boundaries. That's how we figure out where we want to make compromises. That's how we better understand the feelings and the needs and the wants of the other party. If we're over here keeping the peace and avoiding conflict, then we're missing a whole arena of opportunity to better bond and better connect with our partner. If we're saying yes to things when actually deep within us is a no, this becomes problematic. We start taking on too much. And eventually this leads to resentment, and stored resentment in a relationship only leads to trouble. Resentment can be the harbinger of doom in any relationship, especially if we're then afraid to communicate that resentment at a later date. And the final point I want to make about this is that when we're people-pleasing, our focus is all out there on the other. We're other-oriented rather than self-oriented. We're actually abandoning our authentic self. We're hiding part of ourselves. We're not making ourselves be vulnerable and known and seen. And so who's in the relationship? It's not our real self. It's a kind of false self, an adaptation from childhood, a false self who is desperately yearning to seek the love of the other rather than bringing their whole, full, authentic self to the relationship where true bonding can happen. So if you think that people-pleasing has had an impact on your relationship and you'd like to explore that, please drop us a line. We'd love to have a free video call with you and we can explore that further. Thanks for listening.